Hello, welcome. We are live, and I'm back in my son's room because I kicked him out for a little while. So I said, "Hey, go spend time with your father. I'm gonna take over your room again." So I'm back in his room, and I wanted to put up a little trigger warning real quick. I am going to talk about eating disorders today. I'm going to talk about death, suicide, and um, possibly some other disturbing, troubling, difficult, whatever term you want to use for topics that go along with these types of things. So please take care of yourself. If this is not something that you think that you can watch right now, don't feel like you have to. Don't force yourself to watch something that is going to upset you. If you need to take a break and come back and watch the rest of it later, do that. And please reach out if you need to talk to me about anything. If you would like to contact me and say, hey, I couldn't, watch your whole stream, but this is something I want to talk about. I'm not, a counselor. I'm not, any type of licensed anything. I'm just experienced as far as like I've had eating disorders for the majority of my life. So here's my email. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime. Okay. I'm always available to chit chat about mental health. I want everyone to feel comfortable. So, my name's Peggy. Thank you so much for coming and watching Clarity and Chaos today. And it is almost Christmas time. Today is the first day of winter solstice. It's one of my absolute favorite days of the whole entire year because the first day of winter solstice means hope. It means that the sun is going to come back. So, even though today is the longest night, the darkest day on the calendar, it means that after this, we get to look forward to longer days. And there's a lot of hope that that brings with it. So I know that a lot of people think of winter as like the dead season. Everything's dead and dying, but that's not true. Everything isn't dead and dying. The trees aren't dead, flowers and leaves and grass and all that isn't dead. It's just dormant, waiting to it's refreshing itself. And it's what I think that a lot of us need to do in the wintertime is refresh ourselves, get ourselves back to whatever space we want to get ourselves back to. I have a lot of things that I'm working on right now. Um, Eating disorder happens to be one of them that I'm actively working on right now. Not doing too well, but maybe there's some people out there that can work with me and help keep me in check. Hi, Brendan. Thank you so much for coming. It's nice to see you. I appreciate your support so much, Brendan. It means a lot to me. Um, so, like I said before, there's a little trigger warning on this. So just please take care of yourself as I'm talking about things. If you feel like that you don't want to finish or if you want to come back to it, please do that. And just be kind to yourself. Don't try to force topics on yourself or don't try to force videos or reading, finishing books and things like that. If it's not something that you're in a good headspace with at that point in time, then it's always a good idea, in my opinion, to put things down and come back to them later. I kind of have more of a tolerance for um a lot of difficult topics. I just think that I've been talking about mental health and I've been studying mental health for so long. And I want to be a safe place for people to be able to discuss things with, that I've been able to kind of um, put up that little barrier between my emotions and my the other side of my brain where I'm like, hey, let's just process this information and then let's get it out to other people. And then my emotions, you know I have other ways that I can deal with that if things do start to upset me. Like I am a counselor and a suicide hotline for LGBTQ youth, and it's one of my absolute favorite things that I do in the entire world. But it does take a lot of brain space. It takes a lot of, me talking to people who come from very difficult situations where I physically can't do anything, and I can't give advice. You know, I'm not legally a licensed counselor. So what I can do is I can open up that space for them and let them talk. And then through their own ideas, we can maybe help them form a plan. And a lot of times, people don't contact suicide hotlines because they're thinking about dying. They contact us before that even comes into question. They're just having a really bad day at school, or their mom and dad just yelled at them, or there's so many other reasons that I get to talk to these people that I love talking to. And I love that these young people are coming for help before it gets to a crisis situation. They're trying to solve things on their own, and they're trying to work through things on their own before they know that it's going to get to a point where possibly there's no backing up. And I think that's fantastic. That's one thing that I absolutely love about Gen Z, is that they're being so self-aware, and they're really trying to fix a lot of things and fix a lot of generational things. I love Gen Z. I will stand up to anybody who talks crap about them. Okay, so Christmas time, I wanted to show off I've got my William Murray Santa Claus shirt. Okay, and if you don't know who that is, I'm sorry. I'm not going to tell you. William Murray. One of my kids gave this to me, and it's one of my favorite shirts. I actually wear it like all year round. And then one of my absolute best friends in the whole world made me. This is my Christmas movie watching mug. And so this is what I'm sipping on. And we just got some water today because I've got a lot to talk about, and I want to, keep myself hydrated. So one of the resources that I used today for finding out information about various eating disorders was this bad boy right here. Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM-5. Okay. In my opinion, I think that this is the best possible resource that I can have when I want to discuss any type of mental disorders. Eating disorders are mental disorders. Eating disorders not in your head. It's not something that you can control. It is a mental disorder that's very similar to addiction. So if you also have an addiction, you will feel the similar pull when you have an eating disorder. You'll feel the similar pull. So you can have that addiction side by side with the eating disorder. So like I have a sugar addiction, and then I also have the eating disorder called binge eating. So with the sugar addiction, which that changes the chemicals in your brain, right? We know that sugar, especially this white refined sugar, that America's food producing factories put in literally everything. There's sugar in everything. And so as I'm going to the grocery store and I'm trying to find low sugar foods, I'm having a really hard time. My daughter and I were looking in the cereal aisle, and she was like, "Oh, this cereal is really healthy. Like, we eat this cereal at home. This is really healthy." And we looked, so much sugar. We looked at another cereal that she was like, "Oh, this has got to be healthy. Like, this has whole grains, and I know for certain it's healthy." Had so much sugar in it. Everything has so much sugar that we can't not get addicted to the white refined sugar. It's it's fairly impossible. So if you are like me and you do eat a lot of boxed foods, processed foods, stuff like that, which I'll get into later about why my diet is like that, um, then there's there's I can't say there's no way to not get addicted to the sugar, but it's very, very difficult. So on days where I don't have any sugar, I can feel it and like my brain is going crazy, my body is going crazy. I can feel it. So I have days where I try my best to, fight the urges and not and restrict myself from a lot of sugar, but it's an addiction that goes alongside my eating disorder. My experience with eating disorders are when I was 16, I was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa, and I had been anorexic longer than that, but that's just when my doctor caught it at a doctor's appointment. She noticed that I had a lot of stretch marks on my back as she was doing, the little scoliosis examination. She noticed stretch marks, and so she asked me about them. She said, "Have you lost a lot of weight recently? Why have you lost a lot of weight?" And then immediately asked me, "Are you anorexic? Do you know what anorexia is?" So all of those things were, yes, I lost weight recently. Um, yes, I'm anorexic. Well, probably. I mean, doctor tells you that, but yes, I know what it is. For me at the time, anorexia was, and I'll go through what the book has to say specifically, but for me at the time, when I was a teenager, anorexia was about losing weight, being skinny, being thin. I was a teenager in the 90s, and that was a time where we had, Alicia Silverstone, um, in Clueless, and we had movies like Girl Interrupted. And I'm not saying that they made eating disorders look glamorous, but to me, my discovery was eating disorder was my only way in my brain to be thin, to be like the shape or size that I wanted to be. I was fairly athletic when I was in middle school. I rode my bike a lot. I played several different sports. So my bottom half was muscular. I had muscular legs. I lived in a really decent sized city and I rode my bike all over that city. So I was constantly on my bike or running or playing sports. So to me, that wasn't what I wanted. That was too like large, I guess. And I did think of myself as fat at the time. And I did think that I was ugly. I was very ashamed of my body size. Um, I'm sure now, if I even remember what my body size was when I was probably about 14, when I would probably like kill to be that size now and to have those muscular legs I had back then too. But I do just remember very strongly being ashamed of myself and be very upset with myself. Um when you buy like onesie sets and you buy like the top and the bottom, and you have to buy like you buy a small for the top because I had no chest, I was very small on top, and then like my bottom I had to buy a medium. Like to me that was really upsetting. So I did just stop eating, and I got to a point where my parents didn't even notice. I've suffered from migraines ever since I was 10. So I could always use the excuse at dinner time that I had a migraine. Hi, Sophia. Thank you so much for joining me. I could always use the excuse that I had a migraine at dinner time, or a tummy ache, and they wouldn't really question it too much. If I used that excuse like every night, they would say something like, do we need to go to the doctor? Migraines are getting really bad again, something like that. But um I could When I was 14, 15, and I only had weekend jobs at the time, I could easily say I was eating at somebody else's house, just walk around the neighborhood for a while, or I could go hang out with friends and then, um, none of us would really eat dinner, and then I'd come home after dinner and I'd pretend like I ate at somebody's house. There were so many ways that I could get around eating, and then eating lunch at school is pretty obvious, like, you don't we didn't have, like, the automated systems back then where, like, now, when, like, last year when my son was in high school, I could just go online. Actually, I had an app that I could go on and check to see how much lunch money he had left, you know? Like, we didn't have that back then. My parents would just give me $2 cash every day, and I'd go, spend it on lunch at school. So, pocketing the 2 bucks or, and I was 14 and I started smoking, and then that 2 bucks went towards cigarettes, which cigarettes, do help curb that appetite. So, that was another, like, way for me to not be hungry, and once your body gets used to that feeling of being hungry, it really it's not something you think about anymore. Like, for me, starting at 14 and then going, I'll talk about between 14 and 18 years old right now. Um, I by the time I was even maybe 15 or 16, I did not have that hunger trigger anymore. There was nothing telling me that I was hungry anymore. It was just, um like, I would eat, and I'm not saying I mean, I'm not dead, obviously, so I would eat, and, I would, like, go and get a salad with my friends, or if I ate, I was sometimes concerned about, like, what I was eating, like what can I eat that I won't feel fat eating it? So salads, were really popular, and for some reason in the 90s, all these restaurants were, like, busting out with, like, those big, huge salads, and, like, you thought they were healthy, but they're really, like 1,500 calories because they have so much crap on them. But I would eat and then but I would eat little bits, So, like, if I was eating with my parents, I would just, eat little portions of things. Say, I wasn't feeling good, or say, like, "Oh, I've got a lot of homework." Like I said, there's so many different ways that I could get around, and my mom would ask me. I'm not saying my mom was clueless, so she would ask me. She would say, like, "I'm concerned. I don't think you're eating enough. I noticed you're losing weight." She would ask me things. But again, we're going to do whatever we can do to, you know, wiggle out of what our parents are asking us, right? So, like, no, I'm not smoking. My mom smoked at home, so it's like, well, my jacket smells like smoke because, mom smokes at home. There's so many things that I could get around that my parents, even if they did have a clue, it would at least, like, get them to stop questioning. And so when my kids were teenagers, unfortunately, they didn't really have that option. The only reason I would maybe stop questioning was if I'm like, "Okay, yeah, like, they've gotta be telling the truth," or, "Oh, this is actually probably not something they wanna talk about right now." But I didn't really go that route with my kids. I didn't just stop the questioning, so my kids they kinda got a different end of that because I had been able to pull stuff over. And we also think we're pulling stuff over on our parents, and we're not. Like, parents, I mean, they're smart. They've been through my mom had struggled with weight for a long time, and I'm sure she went through different types of eating disorders. So it's like I'm sure that I thought that I was pulling a lot of stuff over too, but um The lengths that I went to, and I noticed myself getting so unhealthy. One thing that happens when you're malnutritioned is you get, like, a foggy brain. So well, you're tired all the time. Um, when you don't get the nutrition that you need, you're tired, you have a foggy brain, your reflexes aren't working as properly as they should be, your blood sugar levels are gonna be all over the place, and, your metabolism's not gonna work like it's supposed to. So, what I'll talk about later is at this point in my life, my metabolism is so screwed up from from the various eating disorders and all that I've put my body through that um, I mean, I have worked with a dietitian and I know, like, how to reset it. So, I've done the research, I've worked with a dietitian. It's just, work that, um, I have to force myself to do the work, right? You're not going to change until you're ready to change. Just like with an addiction, I'm not going to, you know there's so many things that I so many barriers, I guess the word that I'm looking for, so many barriers that I put up, and I'm like, "Well, not today for this reason, not today for that reason." "Oh, well, I have to go out and buy myself all new food, and I have all this food in the house right now, and I don't wanna," like, my husband and I already cook separate dinners a lot because eats, um he eats differently than I do, but we, he's a soldier. He has to fuel himself differently, and like more protein, less carbs, and stuff like that. And I'm like all about the bread. Like I'll just sit and eat bread for dinner and be happy. But um, there's just so many excuses that I have, and I guess I'll get into it a little bit later. So back to my anorexia days. When I was 18 and I graduated high school, I had been to counseling. I had gotten very thin, and um I had gotten like noticed for it. And so that was also like an addicting thing because I was so skinny and because I was wearing, like pants that fell off me, or, I was able to wear like, the tiny little baby doll shirts that were so popular back then, or, like I was so tiny and people were like complimenting me, like you could see my little hip bones, and I like got compliments on that, which now is like crazy to me. Like I can't even imagine, like, seeing somebody just completely skin and bones like I was and being like, "Oh my god, you look so great." And I'm like, "I know, I never eat," you know? Um, I wasn't, like, really shy about what was going on in my life, except to adults. So, when I was, a month away from being 19 years old, I got pregnant with my daughter, and at the time, I weighed 97 pounds. So I was 19 going into um, the baby doctor for the very first time in my life, right? And he sees me and I am this tiny, tiny little girl. And he's like, "Oh my God, you are very small." He said, um, "Do you have an eating disorder?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "You don't anymore." He said, "You are eating for 2 people. You do not have an eating disorder anymore. Like, from here until you give birth to this baby, and then after," I was scared because gaining weight was something I was so terrified of, and I had, you know, to me, in my brain, I had worked so hard at, you know, getting this little. But I did understand the ramifications of having a baby inside of me and having to eat for 2. So it wasn't hard. It was, like, actually, like, the day I found out that I was pregnant, I instantly stopped smoking. um, in my brain, something just switched, and I went, "Okay, I'm eating for 2. I have this baby. Let's do this," you know? So then I actually started, like, enjoying eating, and, like, people would take me out for ice cream, or I had friends that would take me out to eat because they knew that, like, I had to gain weight and stuff. At the time, the doctor said that I needed to gain a minimum of 35 pounds for my baby to be healthy, and so on the day that I gave birth, I gained exactly 35 pounds, which I was 132 pounds at the time, which I thought was really funny. But also to say that I was 132 pounds and giving birth to my baby sounds like, oh my gosh, to me. Like I was so little. I had just this teeny little bump. Um, my daughter was 3.5 weeks early, and she was little. She was, about 5.5 pounds, but she wasn't preemie enough where, like, I got to take her home right away. She was doing well. Um, she was breathing well and stuff like that. So, um, for the next, I don't know, maybe year after that, I kind of didn't really care too much about weight. I didn't breastfeed for very long because my daughter and I just didn't. It was a couple months, I think, and I just absolutely could not produce milk, which, had something to do with my eating disorder, partially. So, um, I wasn't too concerned about weight for a while, but then I started like dating again when she was about 1, and then I started to get concerned about weight again. To me, I was overweight. I was like 120 pounds at the time, and I thought I was so overweight. So I started not eating again because I knew in my brain, like, this is the easiest way that I can not gain weight, right? Just don't eat. So I started doing that again, and then again started getting attention from people around me. "You look so great. You're losing weight." And somebody was like, "Oh, the baby fat's going away from your cheeks." And, "Oh, I can see your cheekbones again." And there were so many compliments from people for me, and I dropped the weight fast. I mean, it was within a month or 2, and I was probably back down to 105. I mean, I dropped it fast. And in my mind, I was excited because I'm like, I'm back down to, all of my old high school clothes fit me again. I was happy about that. But I mean, again, I was tiny, was not eating very much. And then that's when I started having stomach problems. So when I was 19 and into 20, that's when all of the effects of being anorexic on your digestive system started to catch up with me. And so I do have a lot of digestive issues still, and I'm 45 now, and it's been a lifelong thing now for me. It's been the past 25 years, but also learning so much more about trauma and learning how that affects your digestive system. So I put trauma onto my body by being anorexic. So I put my body through physical trauma. And then I have emotional trauma that I still work on processing. And so that also is associated with digestive issues. So there's several reasons, right? Plus, I still have my migraines. I still have had um, the migraines this entire time, my entire adult life. And most of the things that they've tried for my migraines haven't worked. So, in that time, while I haven't been able to be treated very properly for my migraines, I'm taking a lot of like Excedrin and like NSAIDs, and so that has caused more digestive problems. So now I have open ulcers in my stomach, and I've had stomach surgery to where like they had to I had so many ulcers in my stomach that they actually had to the duodenum that goes down into your small intestine was closed and no food was passing through. And that was like a year. And I lost weight. That was about 7 years ago. It was my surgery that I had was in 2019. But before that, when we didn't understand why um, food wasn't like passing through, that was about a year before somebody finally took me seriously because doctors don't take women seriously. They don't take overweight women seriously. And even if I have documented digestive issues, several gastroenterologists want me to lose weight first, which I've been told several times. Lose weight. One guy even told me he would not work with me unless I lost 30 pounds. And then I've been told I've literally been told it's in my head. I've been called a hypochondriac. I've been told, well, you just need to go to the bathroom more. That's one of my favorites. Just go to the bathroom more, eat more fiber. hmm So it's really validating when you finally get a doctor who hooks you up and goes, okay, we're doing all the scopes. We're doing the scope that goes in here. We're doing the scope that goes in here. We're doing all these things. We're going to figure this out because this is not in your head and something's really wrong. And then when I have a stomach full of ulcers, it's not fun. I'm not enjoying it, but at least it's validating. And I did write a couple people some very strongly worded letters saying, "Hey, dickheads, guess what? Treat women better because we know when something's wrong with our body. We're not making it up." Um, so that's my history with anorexia, and I have, throughout the years, I have lost little bits of weight by just not eating, but my body can't I can't tolerate it anymore like I used to be able to. So now I'm on the other end of the spectrum, and my eating disorder now has changed to binge eating. So all of this is diagnosed by professionals, but um I did want to read out of my big old book here just so that we understand the clinical descriptions of what I'm talking about. So, eating disorders in the Diagnostical and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, okay? They're officially called feeding and eating disorders. They're characterized by a persistent disturbance of eating or eating related behavior that results in the altered consumption or absorption of food and that significantly impairs physical health or physiosocial functioning. So pretty much what I was talking about, it's eating disorder is going to cause changes in your body. It's going to cause changes in your brain. It does cause actual changes in your brain because of the nutrients that you're not getting, right? You're literally starving your brain of what it needs to function. And then the rest of your body parts, right? Because each of our body parts needs specific vitamins and minerals and water and things like that, right? So some individuals with disorders described in this chapter report eating related symptoms resembling those typically endorsed by individuals with substance use disorders, such as craving and patterns of compulsive use. This resemblance may reflect the involvement of the same neural systems, including those implicated in regulatory self control and reward in both groups of disorders. Okay, so what that is saying is, I said before that eating disorder can be similar to um, an addiction, right? And so people who have addictions and people who have eating disorders, they're going to have the same cravings and patterns of compulsive use. They're going to have the same um, regulatory self control and rewards. So, um, when you're both addicted to something and when you have an eating disorder, you have you have like a reward system for yourself. You have like a, if I can just get through this, then I can whatever XYZ. Have a beer, you know, eat binge eat this food, um, eat all the chocolate in my house, like whatever it is, that's your reward. So your brain is going to constantly be thinking of like, what's my next reward going to be? Like, when am I going to get what would be like a fix? So like, when am I going to get that next? And then you do have self-control in a sense, um, because you can like wait for things, but your brain is still constantly going to be thinking about like when is it going to happen next. So I'm going to talk real quick about anorexia. In the book, it says that anorexia is persistent energy intake restriction. So obviously that's just not consuming stuff, right? You're restricting yourself from intaking any type of energy resources for your body, right? There's an intense fear of gaining weight or of becoming fat, or persistent behavior that interferes with weight gain, and a disturbance in self-perceived weight or shape. The individual maintains body weight that is below a minimally normal level for age, sex, developmental trajectory, and physical health. So the book does go into this whole thing about like BMI and, not everybody's weight and body size and stuff like that is going to be the same for everybody. So with that understanding, bulimia is what we're going to get to next. Sorry. Anorexia is just you're staying below whatever weight is healthy for you, your shape, your size, your race, anything that's going to affect what your regular body weight is supposed to be. So if you're anorexic, the goal is to be underneath whatever that healthy weight is, and then even to go lower than that. You don't have a healthy idea of what of how much you should weigh. You don't understand that you need to weigh this because this is how your body consumes energy. Otherwise, as we know, the body is going to consume energy in other unhealthy ways. And then that's where, I got into breaking down of muscle mass and the brain fog and all sorts of various things that happen to me. Individuals with anorexia typically display an intense fear of gaining weight or of becoming fat. This intense fear of becoming fat is usually not alleviated by weight loss, which for me, it definitely was not. The experience and significance of body weight and shape are distorted in these individuals. Some individuals feel globally overweight. Others realize they are thin, but are still concerned that certain body parts, particularly the abdomen, buttocks, and thighs, are too fat. They may employ a variety of techniques to evaluate their body size or weight, including frequent weighing, obsessive measuring of body parts, persistent use of a mirror to check for perceived areas of fat. The self-esteem of individuals with anorexia nervosa is highly dependent on their perceptions of body shape and weight. Weight loss is often viewed as an impressive achievement and a sign of extraordinary self-discipline, whereas weight gain is perceived as an unacceptable failure of self-control. So that was all very much me. If I gained weight, I was going to be very angry with myself, like I let myself eat too much, or if my jeans got tight, that was I did not do the weighing or the measuring types of things, but I do know that that is definitely something that people with anorexia do. I just kind of measured myself by my clothes, and um I didn't do skinny jeans back then, but when I say skinny jeans, I mean size 0, like what I would right now call very skinny jeans. So to me, that was if my size zeros or ones or twos or whatever got tight, then to me that was like, oh, that was a signal, like, okay, crap, we're going too far. Eating too much, and I was very upset with myself. Okay, so I'm going to talk briefly about bulimia nervosa. Now, I've never been bulimic. So the difference in my terms, the difference between our anorexia and bulimia is that with bulimia, you do purge, so you do make yourself throw up. There's other ways to make yourself, I guess, purge in a way, like people will take excessive amounts of laxatives after they eat. But as I'm going to read, one of the biggest parts of bulimia nervosa is the purging. And it becomes sometimes it becomes one of the goals of it. So there's that difference where here with bulimia, you're going to purge first, and then you're going to binge eat first, and then you're going to purge, right? Whereas with the anorexia, you're just not consuming food. There are 3 essential features of bulimia nervosa: recurrent episodes of binge eating, recurrent inappropriate compensatory behaviors to prevent weight gain, and self-evaluation that is unduly influenced by body shape and weight. To qualify for the diagnosis, the binge eating and inappropriate compensatory behaviors must occur, on average, at least once per week for 3 months. An episode of binge eating is defined as eating in a discrete period of time an amount of food that is definitely larger than most individuals would eat in a similar period of time under similar circumstances. A discrete period of time refers to a limited period, usually less than 2 hours. A single episode of binge eating need not be restricted to one setting. For example, an individual may begin a binge in a restaurant and then continue to eat on returning home. Continual snacking on small amounts of food throughout the day would not be considered binge eating. So the binge eating would be you just have a serious sense of lack of self-control. So you're going to eat, and you're going to eat until you're full, and then you're going to eat until you're more than full. And then sometimes because this is a mental disorder and you are using binge eating as a coping mechanism, right? Way to cover something up, way to not deal with whatever's going on in your life or whatever your thoughts are or your trauma or etc. It can be a form of self-harm. So binge eating can be like eating to excess to where it's actually painful, but then you're still going to keep eating because it can be used as a form of self-harm also. But in this case with bulimia, that's going to be followed by the purging, because the intent is to eat but not keep it in your body. Individuals with bulimia are typically ashamed of their eating problems and attempt to conceal their symptoms. The binge eating often continues until the individual is uncomfortably or even painfully full. Binge eating may minimize or mitigate factors that precipitated the episode in the short term, but negative self evaluation and dysphoria often are the delayed consequences. I think that is, I think that sentence right there sums up all of these eating disorders, like eating disorders in general. You're going to get that immediate self gratification of whatever you're trying to accomplish, and then you're going to feel like shit, right? So it's not going to last. It says negative self-evaluation and dysphoria are often the delayed consequences. So for me, I still have body dysphoria, and so I still have that constantly going through my brain, just always self-evaluating, putting myself down, and to the point where, like, I feel like my being overweight, like, causes me not to do things. Like, I don't want to go out. Like, I don't really like to be seen. This is okay. But like, if I had to stand up in front of a camera, I would not really be okay with that. Um Then I also wanted to talk about the purging real quick. So, another essential feature of bulimia nervosa is the recurrent use of inappropriate compensatory behaviors to prevent weight gain, collectively referred to as purge behaviors. Vomiting is the most common inappropriate behavior. The immediate effects of vomiting include relief from physical discomfort and reduction of fear of gaining weight. Individuals with bulimia place an excessive emphasis on body shape or weight in their self-evaluation, and those factors are typically extremely important in determining self-esteem. So binge eating is another disorder, and we talked a lot about binge eating just now, but I just wanted to read real quick. The essential feature of binge eating disorder is recurrent episodes binge eating that must occur on average at least once per week for 3 months. An episode of binge eating is defined as eating in a discrete period of time an amount of food that is definitely larger than most people would eat in a smaller period of time under similar circumstances. So I already read that underneath bulimia, but I just wanted to read it again. And then this also notes that the context in which the eating occurs may affect the clinician's estimation of whether the intake is excessive. For example, a quantity of food that might be regarded as excessive for a typical meal might be considered normal during a celebration or a holiday meal. So it's just noting that you might have thought that you binged, and you might get upset because you're like, oh crap, I binged and I just ate all day on Thanksgiving, and I literally ate all day and my stomach really hurts, and now I binge ate, and now I feel awful about myself and I feel awful. But that's not typical for you. That was just because it was a holiday and there's all this food, and there's all these things that we only make on holidays that you're not going to get again till next year. Totally reasonable that you're going to binge all day. You're going to get your big food baby. You're going to go home. You're going to digest it. You're going to be fine, right? It's not going to cause you any long-term harm, versus where when I'm binge eating, it's eating usually has to do with something that's going on at the time, how I'm feeling. My husband and I, we have to live apart a lot, so I do binge eat more often when I don't live with him. I'm one of those people that still I'll eat dinner with the family, but if I'm eating snacks or if I'm eating junk food, I have to eat it by myself. I don't like to eat snacks or junk food in front of people. Um, so um, if the family goes away for a while for the day or something, then I'll bust out my secret stash of M&Ms or whatever. I've always got secret stashes of candy that most of the time the kids have figured out where I keep them, and I've kind of stopped hiding it now that the kids are gone. But for me, binge eating is, like I said, it's got something to do with the trauma. It's got something to do with, you know, everything that's going on, stress. Um, so I do have other people around me and other people in my life that do binge eat. And it's not, my place to name names and things like that, because I know that people have not been formally diagnosed with eating disorders like I have. So I do feel like there are habits that I've picked up throughout my life. And I also feel um, um, there's so many things that I have to work on personally that's really hard to work on. And I don't, I don't have a therapist right now. Because moving around so much is really hard to keep therapists. And every time I move somewhere and I find one I like, then I have to move again. And so many states, you can't still talk to a therapist once you leave that state. And that's hard, and I don't like doing therapy online. I want to do it in person, and I live in a really isolated place right now, so the only way to do therapy for me right now is online. There's a lot of excuses, and yes, I should get back into therapy. But I have talked about before, I have worked with dietitians. I've been on various medications. I'm actually on medications right now that's supposed to help curb my appetites. I don't think it works. Not sure why I'm still on it, but um I do consciously make efforts, and I do work on things. But and I'm not afraid to talk about it. It's not something I'm excited about. I am embarrassed, and I am, there's a lot of shame in eating disorders, a lot of shame. I think that's one of the top things for me throughout my lifetime has been trying to hide, that I have an eating disorder. But I think at this point in my life, I know that I have to really work on it, but I also want to make sure that it's something that people aren't scared to talk about, because the shame, the stigma, um, and just how many times I've either read or been told it's in your head. And I promise you, eating disorders are not in your head. There's no possible way that you can be faking an eating disorder. You can be making it up, or you're just hey, you know what? Today I'm going to have an eating disorder, but it's just going to be for today, and then I'm never going to do it again. You know, there's just so many myths and untruths around eating disorders that I think if we talk about it more, that people will be like, yeah, this is a real, actual, serious problem. And there is something that can and should be done about um, eating disorders. I mean, they do cause death. They do kill people, especially anorexia. Anorexia is one of the most deadly mental disorders that there is. And I don't think I was ever close to death, but I also don't know. Like I don't know. I didn't have a scanner. I didn't see what was going inside my body. There's a very good chance that having my daughter did save my life. Um, there's a good chance that I would have just kept going and kept getting smaller. If you've ever seen pictures of people with severe anorexia, the severe lack of food, the severe dehydration, it's it's not pretty. It's one of those little like dark things that we try to keep hidden in the corners because um it bothers us or it disturbs us. And while I do say that we need to take care of ourselves and limit ourselves to what we know that our brain can handle consuming, I also just want to um add in that if somebody does need to talk about an eating disorder, then if you cannot be the person to give them that space, then help them find some place where they can have the space to talk about it. um so what I did here was I came up with some little banners, and I just want to put these out. Okay, so NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Health, is one place that you can get help for eating disorders and various kinds of mental disorders. They're one of the top research organizations in the country. So they have a helpline that you can call, you can text, or you can email them if you need any help. And um, the other one that I wanted to bring up is the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. So 988 is the number for them. Or you can chat with them online. Okay, so you can go to their website and you can chat online with them. You don't have to talk to somebody on the phone if you're not comfortable doing that. And that can be, you can talk to them about your eating disorders and they can help you find resources in your area. Um, or they'll have other online resources for you, but they are all trained counselors, and so they are trained in specific areas like eating disorders. Okay, and so this is it's called the National Association of Anorexia Nervosa and Associated Disorders. So ANAD, their helpline and website are right here. So they also have a place where you can call and talk to somebody, and they're experts in various eating disorders. Or you can go online and you can request to talk to a mentor, or you can request to be in a chat group. So they have various resources right on their website. If you do have an eating disorder and if you do want help, or if you know somebody who has an eating disorder and you want to get them help, I would definitely give out this website. There's several different ways that they can get help from the website, and then resources on the website that can direct them to other places too. And honestly, all I did was just the Google search of, I think I put like, how can I get help if I have an eating disorder? And these three things were the first three things that popped up. And doing a suicide hotline myself, I do know, like I said before, people do contact us just, and I'm not saying just as, I'm not minimizing it, okay? But they do contact us when it's not an emergency, which is fantastic. That's what people should be doing. Um There we go. So I did talk want to talk just a little bit about the holidays, and eating disorders during the holidays can be so difficult when you're somebody who's hiding your eating disorder. Um, you don't want people to know either you're not eating or you're binging and purging, or you're just binging. Whatever your eating disorder is, you don't want people to know what's happening, because then you're going to get questions. You're around more family than usual. So you've got grandma and grandpas and aunts and uncles, and chances are you have judgy people who are around you, people who are not going to understand even what an eating disorder is. Again, it's, to people, it's in your head. um I think so, I had a grandpa who was fairly judgy, and he was even the type of person where if you gained weight, he would say something. Like when my sister gained weight cuz she was pregnant, and he said something so mean to her that made her cry, and it was like, "Okay, grandpa, she's literally growing a child." Um but um I don't know how. Okay, so my grandma used to tell me some stories about like being a woman in the 1950s or 1940s, okay? They got married in the mid 1940s, and for her, being a woman back then meant being small, being little. So kind of like not being seen, being small. My grandma was always tiny. She's always just had this tiny little waist. She was always petite. And um she, had told me stories about like gaining weight when you have babies. And like it wasn't even acceptable. Like you gained your weight when you had your baby, but then you better lose that weight when you have the baby. So I think in my grandpa's very distorted, old fashioned brain, thinking that women always needed to be little and tiny and petite, you know, um, and then saying something to a woman who's pregnant and calling her fat. Um, Not appropriate at all, not okay. She's growing a beautiful baby, and she's a beautiful woman, right? And doesn't matter how much weight she gains, because she needs to be healthy for her and for her baby, and not worried about what your grandpa thinks you look like or whatever, right? So, I'm saying all this to say, like, during the holidays, you have judgy people around you. You have people that they don't like that you're LGBTQ. They don't like that you're, even like I took like when I graduated high school and I was supposed to take a gap year, not go straight to college. And I had a baby, but I got so many judgy comments about not going right to college and taking the gap year, and it was like, they judge you for everything. Certain family members are going to judge you for absolutely everything. So if you have too much food on your plate, they're going to judge you for that. If you don't have enough food on your plate, they're going to judge you for that. If you're too skinny, they're going to judge you for that. If you're too overweight, they're going to judge you for that. They're always going to say something. And as much as it hurts or it annoys you, or you absolutely loathe being around those people and you hate going to those Christmas things, those holiday things, if it's something you have to do, and like it's an expectation and you don't really have a choice, um my number one thing has always been avoidance. I avoid those people. Um, there's always the fun uncle to go talk to, or there's always the cool cousins to go hang out with, or typically there is somebody else that you can stick near, or because my dad and I, we would kinda stick together, and I would just kinda, like, hide behind my dad a lot. Even as I got older, My dad was just kinda like my safe space when we would go to those things, and, like, so many family members I didn't know or I hadn't seen in so long, and, like, I was scared of them or whatever. But, there's also the option of not going to parties that you think are going to be detrimental to your mental health. If there is a family function, then you feel forced or you feel like parents are making you go or grandparents are making you go, um, there is the option to say, "No way, I'm not going," right? There is the option to, um I mean, yeah, you're probably gonna piss some people off, um, but if there's people who aren't gonna look out for your mental health anyways, if there's people who aren't going to understand, if you're like, "Hey, man, I'm a binge eater, and if I go to this person's house with a massive buffet of food, I'm not going to be able to control myself. I don't have that in me. I can't go to these kinds of events." Or, like with me, I have a lot of shame in like eating in front of people. So last week we had an event for my husband's work, and it was, a potluck buffet, and it was a lot for me because normally I would like load up my plate and then like go back and get a bunch of desserts and stuff like that. But um I was talking to somebody new that I had just met. And so then, because I was sitting next to somebody new and like talking to them, I just got like a small plate of food, and I just kind of like put one spoonful of this on and one spoonful of this on, and just kind of like ate little bites, and I didn't go to the dessert table. Then I was kind of sad afterwards because I was like, "Oh, I wanted some desserts." But there's just, like, so much shame for me in, like, eating around people, especially people that I don't know, that I always feel like people are watching me, and I know they're not, and I know that nobody gives a shit. I know nobody's watching me, but it's still in the back of my brain that people are watching me eat, and they're like, "Oh, look at that fat woman took so much food," and like that's just what the stuff that goes through my brain, right? So I don't like to put myself in those positions. So there are a lot of times with my husband where I do say like, "No, thank you. I'm not going to go to whatever party." I do say no a lot though, so I felt like I should support him in a work event at some point. So I did agree to go to the potluck, but and I mean it ended up being fine. It's just there's a thousand things that go through my brain that I wish I could turn off. I wish I could just tell myself to shut up and enjoy myself. I wish that I did not have to um constantly think about like, what if that person's looking at me, or what if I take too much food, or what if I look stupid, like what if I wear the wrong thing, or um um, it would make my life a lot easier if I could go to parties and just have fun and like meet people and talk. It's not how my brain works, unfortunately. There's just too many other things involved, for me to get out of the house and go meet new people, and especially if there's food involved. If there's not food involved, it does make things a little easier for me. Um, but I would say over the holidays, um, the next like 2.5 weeks or so we've got coming up, and there's going to be parties and food, and I'm sure some people have already faced that so far this month, and Thanksgiving, and um if there is something that's going to be really problematic for you, I do suggest not going, or having somebody that you can trust, somebody that maybe knows about your eating disorder, somebody that you can talk to, somebody that's going to be there with you, having a partner who understands what's going on in your brain a little bit, that helps so that you can talk to them and be like, "Oh my god, I want to eat all this food." And then they'll be like, "Hey, I'll go get you a plate of cake." And then no one will even notice, you know? Um, Hi, Ashley. I'm actually just about to wrap up. Um, I did want to pop up a couple of my banners again real quick. Okay, so my email, in case anybody, if you do want to talk about eating disorders, I'm always available. Let me know if there's any other things that you want to talk about, and if you want to come on the show and talk about something, if you want to have me talk about something, I'm happy to do that. And then here's these numbers again, real quick. So if you need help, if you know someone who needs help, these numbers are all great to give them, and check out the websites. And then this was the specific National Association of Anorexia Nervosa and Associated Disorders. So this phone number and this hotline and website um, are good ones to give if you know somebody who's struggling. And I mean, holidays are just so. Oh, I understand, Ash. I know it's a rough topic. I know. Holidays are so difficult for us when we have eating disorders, and I just want to um let people know that it's okay. It's okay to feel the way that you feel. Like, your feelings are totally valid. Feeling anxious, feeling upset, feeling nervous, the shame, all of the things that go with this eating disorder, mental disorder. Um, if you do suspect that you may have an eating disorder, but you don't know, going to the doctor is the first thing that you should do. And my eating disorders have been diagnosed by both physicians and um, my psychiatric um, what's the word? The My psychiatric team that cares for me. And so it's a relief to get a diagnosis, because then there's ways to like step forward and then, like, start going to the dietitian. Some dietitians are experts in eating disorders, and that's probably where you should go if you can. I know we don't always have a choice with our insurances and such, but if you can find somebody who's an expert and they can help you through, there's several different ways to reset your system, reset at least your body so that you can start eating again. Um, I have like a lot of foods because of the ulcers in my stomach. I have a lot of foods that I can't eat, and unfortunately, it's a lot of like the fresh foods. Like, I can't eat anything green. I can't eat any salads or spinach or broccoli, or there's so many healthy things that I can't eat. So it has made me reach for more processed foods and for more um, junk foods, because I have gone so many years without being able to eat a lot of like the fresher, healthier foods. But I am like forcing myself to eat more fresh foods and to like keep experimenting and see, like, maybe my body's outgrown this by now, or maybe I can finally eat this. Like, I couldn't eat bananas for years, and I couldn't eat oranges for years, and now I can eat those things. So I am like working on forcing my body to kind of like at least try to reset and try to um, force myself to eat healthier things. But it is really convenient, really easy to reach for junk food. Um, and Even grocery shopping, so often junk food's cheaper than the fresh foods, and it's a struggle. When you have an eating disorder, shopping is always a struggle. But I have to make lists. I have to try to stick to my lists. Otherwise, I'll come home with like 7 bags of candy, which I have done before, and like a pie and a cake. And my husband stays away from a lot of carbs and junk food. So, uh, yeah, it then becomes a temptation for both of us, and it's not good. So yeah, reach out for help if you need help. Email me if you have anything that you want to talk about. Thank you so much for watching today. Have a wonderful rest of your holiday season. And I hope that everyone can take care of themselves in the way that you deserve to be taken care of. And that's the way that you would take care of your children and your pets and your spouse and everybody that you care for and you put so much time and energy into. That's how you should be caring for yourself too, and myself included. I need to point that right back at myself too. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody. All right, bye bye.